Okay. Welcome everyone to ANC 34G's regular meeting. This is the second Monday in May, and we meet on the second and fourth Mondays of each month. We are meeting again virtually, as we have been for some time. I'm Randy Speck. I'm the chair of the commission. I also represent the single member district 34G03, and that's basically the area from Nebraska over to Utah and down to Broad Branch. We'll introduce all the commissioners first, and we'll begin with Lisa.
You threw me off, Randy. I'm usually last. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Gore, and I'm the commissioner for ANC 34G01, which is Hawthorne and portions of Barnaby Wood. And that single member district covers Western Avenue, past Pinehurst Circle to Upland, over to Beach Street, that Pinehurst tributary, back over towards Oregon Avenue, back up to Western. So around that area. Thanks for coming.
Connie.
Hello, everyone. I am Connie Chang, and I am the commissioner for the single member district number 5, which is the east side on Connecticut. If you go from Legation going up to Chevy Chase Circle, so it has the community center and the public library and some restaurants and so forth. And then you go hook around, you go western, you come back down on Broad Branch Road on the west side, and then you come down and it kind of curls in with a little divot there between Nevada and Chevy Chase Parkway and Gosselin. So it's like a little dreidel. Thank you for being here tonight.
Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Fromboluti. I'm the commissioner for 3G07, which is the area roughly bounded by Military, Reno, Nebraska, and Nevada, with the exceptions of the small incursions from Connie's and other districts.
Michael.
Michael Zeldin, I'm 3G04, which is Morrison over to Tennyson, bounded by Western and parts of Utah. And I have the elementary school, Lafayette Elementary School, within my boundaries.
John.
I'm John Higgins. I am ANC Commissioner for ANC 02. My district runs from the south at Nebraska to the north, a little bit above Wise Road, and from Oregon to Utah, east to west.
And Peter.
My name is Peter Gosselin. I represent the neighborhood on the west side of Connecticut back to 41st, from the Western Avenue border with Maryland to Military, with a peninsula running east to Chevy Chase Parkway between Kanawha and Legation. Thanks for coming.
Okay, we have all 7 commissioners here again, as we have every single meeting this year. And we're meeting virtually again, as we have since last April, a year ago, April. We want to encourage community participation in these meetings, but we also want to keep it as orderly as we can. I'm going to make Lisa the co-chair. I always forget to do this. The co-host. And so she can admit you to be a panelist, where you will have audio and visual as we go through the meeting, if that comes up. If you have not renamed yourself to reflect your actual name, please do so that we will be able to recognize you and recognize and put you up on as a panelist. We will you can use the Q&A function or the chat function. We encourage you, if you have questions, to include those in the Q&A, and if you have comments, to put those in the chat. And we will be making a copy of those if we don't get to all of the questions, so that we can answer them at a later point as well. The meetings are going to be recorded, and they will be posted on our YouTube channel probably tomorrow. Okay, the first item is to adopt our agenda. The agenda has been posted on our website and on various social media. Any changes or modifications to the agenda? All those in favor of adopting the agenda? 7-0. Okay, and as we usually do, we're going to have a few commissioner announcements first, and then we'll go to community announcements. But I have several commissioner announcements. First, the council's committee on the whole is holding a roundtable on May 25th on vacant and blighted property in the district. And this came up in the hearing for the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs on their oversight hearing that Council Chair Mendelson was very concerned about this, as were several other council members. So now they're holding a separate roundtable on this question. And they have asked the ANC commissioners to report on continuously vacant properties in their neighborhoods. And in order to provide the council with a complete list, or as complete a list as we can, we're asking people to report to us if they're aware of possible vacant houses in the neighborhood. So please send me an email at 3g03@anc.dc.gov or to your own commissioner, any commissioner, to let us know if there is a vacant property in your neighborhood that we should call to the attention of the council. We probably will be submitting testimony. Well, almost certainly will be submitting testimony in that roundtable hearing. The second announcement I have is with regard to public schools. The DC Public School is considering how it will use the recently acquired properties at MacArthur Boulevard and Foxhall Road, and is conducting a survey that will be open until May 19th and is available in English and in Spanish. The link to that will be in our minutes, and it's bit.ly/Foxhall MacArthur survey. They will also be holding a community listening session on Monday, May 17th from 5:30 until 7:30 to gather additional feedback on the Foxhall MacArthur planning. Now, this is important for our area because it's going to deal with the whole Wilson High School feeder pattern, and we're a part of that. And so in at least an indirect way, what happens with the MacArthur and Foxhall facilities is going to affect us as well. You can also submit testimony by email for that hearing. If you can't attend, it's dcps.planning@k12.dc.gov if you want to submit testimony. Next, the fees for residential parking are going to be going up as of June 1st. The annual fee for a one-year permit will increase from $35 to $50 for all of those under 65. They will remain at $35 for people over 65. And for everyone, the fees will then increase for the second and third and any subsequent vehicles that you have. The next announcement is with regard to something that we've been, our commission has passed a resolution on back in February of 2018. We were urged the council at that point to provide public access to privately owned restrooms across the district using financial incentives. The council approved legislation that included that provision in April 2019. And it also included a provision for new public restrooms that would be created. And it's about, I think, a year and a half late, but the mayor has finally submitted a report to the council identifying 6 possible locations for 2 public restrooms that will be created. It just shows you how slowly things happen sometimes in the district, despite something that we all thought was an obvious need that needed to be addressed. And that same statute that I mentioned a moment ago, the 2019 Public Restrooms Act, did call for a new program providing financial incentives to businesses that open their restrooms to the public, just as we had recommended, but that has never been funded. And so that aspect of the statute has never been implemented. Finally, just a brief update on the vaccination status. About 24% of the district residents are fully vaccinated now. And for our neighborhoods, it's about 38% in Barnaby Woods and Hawthorne, and about 30% for Chevy Chase. And the percentages are significantly higher for residents 65 and older. So we still have work to do to get everyone vaccinated. So please, if you haven't been vaccinated, be sure you can take advantage of it now. Okay, other commissioners with announcements? Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to announce that this summer from most of June through the end of September, I'm going to be out of town in a sort of semi-wilderness location, and I won't have a lot of full internet access. So during that period, I'm not going to be able to fully participate in ANC event, actions and meetings. I'll try to attend as many as I can, but I'm going to be quite busy with family, et cetera. And the other announcement I wanted to make is along with that, I'm resigning the position of vice chair. I think it should go to somebody who's more active in the commission than I am, and there are a number of you that are such. So I am officially no longer vice chair. So if anybody has any questions about that, please send me an email, or you can ask it now.
Okay, Michael, you had an announcement as well. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, it's just to remind everybody that on June the 1st, the District of Columbia, according to the mayor, has announced that it's going to begin fully enforcing all parking regulations. They've just begun to start ticketing cars this month around schools and other locations, but starting June 1, it'll be everywhere, and that'll include towing and sweeping of streets. And also all DC driver's license need to be renewed by July the 1st.
Okay, any other announcements, Connie?
I have a few. I don't think Alex Preface is here from Chevy Chase Main Street program, but he told me that the management company is going to work with their property manager to remove the graffiti off of the billboard. I don't know of the timing, but they decided that they couldn't go the route of DPW because DPW is not performing cleanings on non-street related graffiti. And so I think that will just move forward, and Alex will update us next time when he has more information, but I wanted to just bring that up. The other thing is we heard from some researchers at the University of Florida. They are conducting a survey on the use of e-scooters and public transit. And it's a 15-minute survey. And they've reached out to the commission and asked us, would we be willing to please, share it with the constituents? And I guess they are just trying to see how it's being used in the district. And I went on and answered a few questions, and you do have to have some time to be able to do that. So I will put in the chat the link to that survey, as well as the researchers who you can contact with more questions, and I could certainly post it elsewhere. The other news I wanted to share is on Earth Day. No one else has mentioned this yet, but on Earth Day, there's a new, DC has launched a Green Boats program. And this program is you can rent a kayak or canoe for free and paddle on the Anacostia River as long as you promise to collect trash. So that's pretty cool. And it's this sort of Swedish trend of picking up trash while jogging, known as plogging. And so now they're doing it. And so you can, there's a website, you could book the boats online, and boats are available every Saturday through the end of August. So it's the next many months at Kingman Island near RFK Stadium. And I will also try to provide the link. So I think that's a pretty good opportunity. And there was a whole article that's written about it. So I will also try to post that as well. That's it.
Lisa?
Just a reminder for everyone, if you have announcements, if you can send me as much in writing as possible, especially links to stuff. Thanks. And I've gotten some already, Randy, I looked at yours. You are amazing. Thank you.
He has to set the standard again. Maybe he needs to share it so we could just copy it.
Woo!
Okay.
Okay, any other commissioner announcements? Okay, any community announcements? If you want to just raise your hand, if you've got community announcements you'd like to make. I see we have Matt and Dee are both there.
Yeah. Emir, did you want to
Emir.
make yours? He sent me a. There we go. Also got Emir's.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, thank you, thank you. My name is Amir Gur-Rabentab, and I am the Ward 3 MOCR, the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services. I did send my written part to Commissioner Gore, but I wanted to say it myself in case there's any questions for me. So I just have a couple announcements regarding the vaccine and restrictions. As one of the commissioners mentioned before, the vaccines are walk-up sites now. They're not doing pre-registration anymore. And we're going to have another vaccine day of action on May 22nd, which is the second part of the May 1st vaccine day of action, where neighbors were able to canvass their locations to see if anyone is interested in getting the vaccine. And it was a massive success. We're going to do it again that Saturday, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. There are slots, and I'm going to put it in the chat, the bit.ly link to sign up. And moving on, let me put it to everyone. And moving on to restrictions, big announcement today from the mayor. May 21st, they're going to be getting rid of all restrictions for public and commercial activities, except for bars, nightclubs, and entertainment venues. So that includes capacity restrictions, that includes activities that you can't do. They're going to be lifted. And then June 11th, those restrictions are going to come down for bars, nightclubs, et cetera, anything that hasn't been removed on the May 21st. Masks are still going to be required until further notice, but from June 11th on, there's going to be no more restrictions on capacity in the District of Columbia. And real quick, there's also a giveaway being held by Restaurant Association of DC with up to 51 winners, prizes ranging from $500 to $25,000 in value. And I'm going to put the link in the chat real quick. And I want to follow up on some concerns people had about DMV. A lot of people were trying to get DMV appointments and there wasn't enough, especially for getting the permit test, the knowledge test. And in response to that, the DMV has allowed the use of third-party private testing for the learner's permit, so first-time drivers. And I can put that in the chat as well for anyone who needs that. And with that, I can take any questions from the community or the commissioners.
Any questions for Amir? Thank you, Amir. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
We're all anxious to get back to something approaching normal anyway.
Yes, we're glad to have a hard date now.
Right.
And this is going to translate to like any summer parades and DCPS as well. So this is what a lot of people are expecting to hear.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, any other community announcements? I don't see any hands raised. Okay, we'll go on to the substantive part of our agenda. The first is a report on the small area plan process from Commissioners Chang and Gosselin, who are the ANC representatives on the Community Advisory Committee. Peter or Connie, whichever wants to go first.
Connie?
Peter, you can go first, and then I could add anything that's missing.
Okay. This commission passed a resolution in April saying that we would sponsor community forums to serve as a kind of fulcrum and focus for the small area plan process. We have, the chairman made clear at the time we passed this that we needed to move fast to get these things stood up and operating. And I think we've made some progress. I have done research and submitted to the commissioners some information about the the kinds of virtual technology that are available to do big meetings and some of the ways we might do them. The chairman and Commissioner Gore and I had a meeting with OP and the facilitator who OP hired, Josh Lasky, with the firm of Link last week, and I thought it was very positive. I think an issue that we're going to need to discuss, however, is the relationship between this commission and OP. It's important to us that we get OP's cooperation. I think these community forums are not ancillary, they are central to making this process work and for this community to have a voice in its own future. And I was surprised today to hear from the OP manager for this small area plan process that the implication was that we could only talk to the facilitator who would be central if he would facilitate these community forums through OP, and that the implication was that we had to hire the person separately. This does not seem like a positive development, and I would like to talk further with the commissioners about it tonight. That's the end of my report.
Okay. Connie, you have anything else?
Yes, on the same night, we passed another resolution about an outreach program for the ANC to lead some efforts like other civic organizations have done on topics that will help inform the community. So nothing has been done yet. This will start in May. We'll probably have some conversations internally on just figuring out what those topics might be, but we will solicit input as well. Nothing is set in stone yet. We're looking at what others are doing and then what we need to do to help answer some questions and then move that dialogue forward. What we do know in terms of OP's plans, they had their virtual office hours at the beginning of April 7th and 8th. They were supposed to attend an outdoor meeting that didn't happen. They have been speaking to the organizers of the farmers market, which is right outside of Lafayette on Saturdays. And I think they hope to be able to be out there speaking with the community. And they've informed the Community Advisory Committee, the CAC members, that they will announce pretty shortly that their visioning survey as well as visioning workshops will commence in June. So that will start June 5th. And then it's, I think, 8th, 9th, 10th. So it's like 5 chances. 8th, 9th, that's 4 chances for the community to meet with OP staff to talk about what they hope to see in this part of Upper Connecticut. And then once those ideas are laid out in front of everyone, they hope that the next conversations will be, how do we do that? How will that look? And they also have expressed to us what we were saying, I think in our last meeting, that we hope that we could just focus firstly on the community center and the public library, because there's money in the budget, and the council has provided us money already. That work should happen, sooner, and it's on public land, and that there's more opportunity there to try to get subsidies so that we can bring affordable housing and so forth. And so that might be, I think, the focal point going forward. And I think that is all I have. Peter, do you have anything else? Oh, the other thing is the 4th Community Advisory Committee meeting will be held May 18th rather, and that the notes of all of the other previous 3 are on the project website at publicinput.com/Chevy Chase.
Chris?
Yeah, I just want to say people are confused, and I have to admit I'm a little confused also. I mean, we have the Office of Planning that's doing running workshops or whatever on the small area plan, and then we have ANC is going to do something on the small area plan. And how are these two efforts going to dovetail together? And what should people be paying attention to? I mean, a lot of people don't have time to to go to, many, many meetings. It'd be nice to sort of have this somehow organized in a way that everybody can understand what we're doing. So I'd like to know what the big picture is on this whole thing.
Peter, you want to address that?
Yeah, I would like to address that, Chris. Ultimately, it seems to me that the aim of this effort, whether it's OP or whether it's us or whether it's somebody else, is that this community come together and talk with each other about what we value and where we want the community to go and what we want it to look like 5, 10, 30 years from now. And out of that, draw a plan to allow some change, fight other change, but it ultimately is a conversation among us. And what troubles me about, we have repeatedly passed resolutions saying, I think we came into this thinking that OP was going to deliver to us a process, and that in that process, the community would get to talk and the things that I've just expressed would happen. I think what we've learned is that OP is reluctant to provide that process. And so we've stepped up and are going to provide it. And frankly, for my money, what we're doing is the center, the fulcrum of all of this. What was so discouraging about these recent notes that I received and you received too, is that I thought as recently as last week, we were coming together, OP and the ANC were coming together on a process. And now apparently they're going to send us a bill. Who knew? Like this commission, the predecessor, your commission, the commission you were on, Chris, asked for a small area plan and played a huge role in raising the money for it with Councilmember Che. And now we're being told that if we want to pay for a facilitator who's being paid with the money you guys raised, then we have to pay extra. And that's outrageous. Thank you.
Lisa?
Yes, I was just responding to something in the chat. I don't know what to kind of say now. I agree with Chris. What I was going to originally say is what Chris expressed was my initial concern with having, and somebody just put in the chat, that Peter has a parallel process. We actually have 2 parallel processes in the ANC. Connie has a resolution and Peter has a resolution. And I think, they're both trying to do what Peter just really articulated, but I do have the underlying concern that Chris expressed. And I think I kind of expressed that a little bit when we were going over Connie's resolution on April 12th. It's just how do we not cannibalize some of that, participation through the planning process. And I think we just have to put a lot of effort, because I agree. I think we are going to have some confused residents out there, and it's going to be up to us to kind of mitigate that. But I definitely think, Peter's point is correct. Office of Planning is not giving us the process that we need. So we have to develop something that is going to address the concerns of the citizenry and inform them about the process.
Connie or John? You haven't spoken. John?
Yeah, Peter, those background papers are pretty impressive. You've done a lot of work. I just want to throw out a lot of thanks to you for doing all this. I think one thing we need to make sure of. Hello?
I can.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, one thing we need to make sure of is we don't get trapped into arguing over the shape of the table with OP, famous from the Vietnam era. And as far as Link is concerned, our objective is different from OP's. Link, I presume, is more or less a neutral facilitator company. As long as we make our goals clear to Link, and should they be able to handle, and OP's goal may be different. Link, however, is the facilitator for both. can we be able to have them serve both purposes simultaneously? I do think you make a good point about the orientation of our approach versus OP's approach. And I think we should just maybe continue with, if we have a clear idea of what we want to do and we want Link to do it for us, then we should be able to go forward with that.
Peter?
John, to John's point, I agree that we shouldn't get into an argument of the shape of the peace table. And I think that we've made, this commission, certainly I have made strides in trying not to keep bickering about that. I mean, a legitimate issue, but one I just think is not worth arguing about anymore is this question of sort of the comp plan versus a small area plan. It might be the case that as a legal technicality, the comp plan is going to have more weight than the small area plan. But our best hope for the community to have a voice in its own future is for us to talk among each other and come up with some consensus about what we want for our future. And so that, I think there is an example of something that a month ago I was arguing about. I think we just need to move forward. With regard to Chris's point and Lisa's, I think the reason why, I think we were in a period where of change here, where we had come into this year, and those of us who arrived on the commission knew, I think, expecting that OP would provide the framework and that we would provide the input. And I don't think that's happened. And so both Connie and I have advanced resolutions that try to build out what we thought we were going to have, but we don't seem to be getting. With regard to Link and Josh Lasky, who is the facilitator, Randy and Lisa and I had a meeting with them. I mean, I thought we were meeting with Lasky and Erkin, but we ended up meeting with, whole, armies on either side. But the net result was very positive. I mean, the Lasky talked about what facilitation is. Lasky and the whole group from Link talked about the kind of nature of facilitation and how you played that, how you played that game as a neutral kind of mediator, moderator, and they seemed really, really intelligent about what they said was really intelligent. And I walked away from that thinking, we're on the road to these community forums and to this community being able to talk to each other, despite the fact we're having to do it during a pandemic. I'm lost about where we are now. And I think that, frankly, this commission, I hope we may do it informally. We might want to do it in the form of a letter that I'd be happy to draft, or maybe Randy would draft it, says to OP, which technically has hired Link, this is a good use and perhaps the ultimate use of Link's services, that using them as moderators for these forums. So
let me just respond to that for a moment. I was less concerned about OP's reaction in the emails we received today. I think rather than sending them a letter, we just need to talk to them and we can work this out. I'm perfectly confident that we can work this out. There's a number of easy solutions here. So let's just work with OP and see if we can figure them out. That's my proposal. And we've already set up an administrative meeting for this Wednesday for the commissioners to talk about the details of how we're going to proceed forward with both of these efforts, both the one that Peter's proposed and the ones that Connie has proposed. And I think that's really important. And as I've said from the very beginning here, time is of the essence. And we need to move forward. And Peter, I agree with you that we should try to get a bigger community meeting by the end of this month. And I'm hopeful that we can do that, but that's going to require us to get moving very quickly. The month is running out. Okay, Chris, or Connie first and then Chris. Excuse me.
Okay, so what I was going to say is, you know, I think we're talking, one thing is the kind of meetings we'd like to see. Then we're talking about who could facilitate those meetings. And then we're talking about who pays for the facilitator. Okay, that's Peter's thing. So what Peter has been seeing over time is he really wants these town meetings where residents can talk to residents. And OP can sit in and listen, and they would be given the results basically, right? He wants to see this, and this is what his resolution is about. And he knows that he needs a facilitator, and he wanted to see if Link was a good facilitating company, and they seem to be. They really know what they're doing, so they're definitely professionals. I do think in that meeting, though, I couldn't attend. I had a conflict. I think that they were thinking it was something new. I think the way they were speaking was like a new contract. So what I'm thinking we could do is that OP has their process. Their visioning workshops, I believe, was to get residents together to tell OP what they want. What they haven't had, though, is the process of residents talking to each other, which is what Peter wants, right? So how do we get the money for this kind of facilitated discussion? We don't have the budget for it, okay? OP has the budget from the council. So the question is, how can we make that happen? Could OP co-host a town hall so that it's justified for them to use the facilitators? They're gonna have to pay the facilitator more because the contract has, I'm sure, just certain things that they're gonna do. Could they do that? Is there money left? I think that's something we don't have to decide on. We don't know today, but I think we can talk to them tomorrow. But I do think that's what you were trying to do, Peter, is to have those kinds of discussions, which you didn't see and you didn't hear that OP was going to do, right? So I'm setting that aside. All right, and please correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm trying to do is what I was hoping that, just to make myself clearer, I'm not trying to bring people to our meeting. I want people to go to OP's organized meetings, like they had that public meeting, they have their office hours and so forth. But it's clear to me that there's still not a common parlance, like there's not a common vocabulary. There's a lot of things that people are still confused over. And that informed community aspect is what I'm hoping that we could lead on as required, meaning what has not been done yet. So at our last public meeting, we talked about, like, we want to build affordable housing, develop affordable housing, but who are the people who are going to live here? So that is a very important question. And at the third CAC meeting for the small area plan, people raised that, like, who's going to come here? Can we have like a little team that's going to work on that to bring that kind of input into our community? So that's one. Another would be just terminology, and we have in one of the comments, a common foundation of terms so that when those community members go into a conversation with OP, that level of conversation, everyone can understand each other. I think that's the difficulty. We don't understand a lot of things. We didn't understand, like generalized policy map, even a comprehensive plan, all of those things. It just takes multiple goes until you feel comfortable and you could use that in that discussion. So I don't think that, certainly my resolution is not trying to, it's trying to complement, and it's trying not just to complement OP, but what other people are doing too, and to make sure that we don't have a conflict in timing schedule and all of that. So that I'm going to take into consideration. And I think what Peter wants to do is something that is different, and he wanted it sooner. I think OP's schedule was just in some ways slower. It's happening in June, and we're worried as a commission that it's not happening soon enough because of the summer, all the summer plans and all of that.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm next. So a lot of this has been said already, but my feeling, OP Link works for OP, and OP's got their process. I don't think OP likes to be told what to do. Most city agencies don't like being told what to do, And so I think we should let them do their thing, and then we should do our thing, and we should try to coordinate somehow But, you know, and so we can make up for what we see as the lack. I don't know. I don't even know what their presentation is yet. We're worrying about it before it even happens. But let's see how they present it, and we can present. You know, we can either fill in the gaps, or we can you know, do what we feel like what we need to do. But I just don't think it's in our position to tell OP what to do and how to run their consultant. And sure, if we're going to tell their consultant what to do, they're going to tell us to pay for them. I mean, they're paying right now. So,
Lisa?
you know, I still don't see a clear difference between what they're doing and what we're doing.
Lisa?
I think, you know, definitely part of the issue with Link is a procurement issue, and working through that procurement process. I don't know if Randy, when we have our discussions with OP, or, you know, if you're going to do that, if you could find out what exactly that contract entails for the facilitator. And if there is some leeway for the facilitator to kind of do what Peter envisions to do, then if there is that leeway, then we should be good. I mean, obviously we have to keep them informed because they're paying Link, and they're the prime. So, but if we don't have that, if they're willing to work with us to get it, that would be great. And if not, like Chris said, then we'll have to come up with our own thing. But I think the first step is to see, you know, if in that contracting process, we have the capability and capacity to partner with them on this, which I'm hoping is written that we can. I think, you know, personally, the contract should have been written regardless of who is holding a, you know, education or facilitation process. If OP is involved, their contractor facilitator should have the ability to work with the community in carrying out this process. So why wouldn't that be inclusive of the ANC?
I think we're going to be able to work that out with OP, frankly. But okay, Peter, and then John, and then we're going to move on.
Chris's first remarks were that he was confused about these seemingly different strands. And then what he just said is that we should go off and do what we're doing, and OP should do what they're doing, and, you know, whatever. That is precisely what leaves people confused. We are trying, I thought what we were trying to do is put together a consolidated, understandable process for this community. Very early on, when this started, everybody from Erkin to Randy to Andrew Trueblood to council members said, we want to work together with the community to have a legitimate, fulsome, small area planning process. I think that Director Trueblood, the director of the Office of Planning, said that in the meetings, in the Q&As that we had with him last month, 2 of them. And yet, here we are saying, as we have said in a resolution, this thing needs to have a center of gravity. And that center of gravity has to be people talking to each other. And it has to be for 2 reasons. One, it has to be so that people can, who they trust most, their neighbors and not some bureaucrat far away, give them feedback about, yes, that makes sense to me. No, that doesn't make sense. Here's an argument about this. Here's a counter argument about that. And they get to assess it. And it also has to be because that assessment process brings the community to, I hope, to some consensus about what needs to be done. Now, we all know from having done virtual meetings here in the commission that that can be complicated, particularly when the issue is hot. And so that's why it's important that we have a professional facilitator who can serve as a neutral moderator. I am touched how we are so concerned about the contracts that have been signed. That contract we should have been involved in negotiating this. It's been a mystery to me why OP has moved forward to this process without involving us from the get-go. But
Peter, there are regulations and laws that prevent them from doing that. So
They don't do that.
we just that's not something we can deal with here. John, and then we're going to go on to the next topic on the agenda. John?
I hope this is not too simplistic. But basically, OP is doing what agencies normally do. They propose something to the community, and they look for reaction. And they're sort of community based. And what Peter is proposing, I think, essentially, so they are agency to community oriented. We are neighbor to neighbor oriented in terms of what Peter's concept is. So we're taking, in the current parlance, we're taking a more granular approach than they are. It seems to me that we should be able to work with them, and that they should appreciate that we are willing to take this more granular approach with the neighbor to neighbor, and both should be covered by the financing that's there. And that we are not in opposition to them, we are supplementing them, and we are enhancing their research process by shouldering the load of the neighbor to neighbor input process. So I think, if we can communicate that to them, I would hope we could, work this out.
I think it can. Okay, this is going to be an ongoing discussion. We're not going to solve everything tonight. So we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a report on the Racial and Social Equity Standing Committee. Lisa Gore and I co-chair that committee. Lisa, you want to provide a report?
Yep, just briefly, we, the last meeting, appointed the new committee members, standing committee members, and I forget how many of them there are. There's about 18 of them, but they've been appointed, and our first meeting is tomorrow, the 11th at 7 p.m. So I will send that announcement on the listserv and Neighbor Next Door. It will be open to the public. Commissioners are ex officio, so please attend if you can. And hopefully we will be able to at least start working on the approved resolutions from the task force group. So education, community, and housing.
Okay.
Got anything else?
Well, I just want to add that we're looking forward to working with the committee. It's going to be a good group of people, I think, and we've got a lot on our table. And one of the first things we're going to have to do is establish what our priorities are going to be. And so we'll begin that tomorrow night.
Lisa, is there an agenda for that meeting?
Not yet. There will be.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll post it.
Okay, any other questions from anyone about that? Okay, well, we'll move on then to the next item, which I know is an important one for everyone, and that is what the Department of Parks and Recreation is going to do about the community center programming and the reopening of the community center. And tonight, Cesar Enriquez is here. He's the site manager for our area, and he's going to address two topics. And Lisa, if you can promote Cesar to a panelist. By the way, I haven't mentioned there are 16, I think, attendees tonight. Just to let everybody know. I've asked Cesar to address two issues. The first is DPR's new arrangements with program instructors. And this comes up as a result of an email that we received from one of the program instructors who was asking some questions about how that relationship between DPR and the instructors was going to proceed going forward. And the second is the plans for reopening DPR facilities. And we're particularly interested, of course, in the Chevy Chase Community Center and the Lafayette Pointer Recreation Center. So Cesar, if you could just give us a briefing on those two issues, the first with the arrangements with program instructors and the second on the reopening plans. Thank you for coming tonight. We really appreciate having you. We can't hear you though. Can you hear us okay? Can you hear us now, Cesar? We can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. Okay,
1 minute.
Cesar, if you go into audio and bring it up and move the scale on the audio, over by the mute button, if you push that, you can change the
I think
audio
he's
settings.
calling in.
I think he's calling in, yeah.
He's calling in.
Okay, I see his hands up again.
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Perfect. Sorry.
Perfect.
Technology.
Yeah.
So again, I just want to thank you guys for giving me a few minutes here. And yes, just regarding about the updates that we have about the new approach that we have with our current contractors there at Chevy Chase and basically in other facilities. I had conversations and I've been in meetings with the executive team about the new approach. And we are actually reassessing the new approach so we can come back with a solid proposal. And that's something that once we have that in play and we know exactly how to move forward, that's something that we're going to present to the community and to you guys as well to let you know, hey, these are the plans and this is what we're trying to do with the contractors. So for now, since we are not holding any type of activities indoors yet, we haven't made a decision yet on that.
Okay.
All right. So as soon as, we are hoping to have something in writing, like Commissioner Speck had asked, hopefully in the upcoming weeks. And as soon as the executive team has that, they'll be able to provide that for me, and we'll have a separate meeting on that. And then I can present that on our next ANC meeting, and I'll be able to answer questions and all that stuff.
Okay, that's good. I was concerned, I guess all of us were concerned that this was being implemented and we really hadn't had a chance to discuss it and consider what the implications would be. And I know some of the instructors were particularly concerned about it. I see Mr. Finkelman is on our list. I think he's attending. Yes. Mr. Finkelman, would you like to ask any questions at this point? If so, please, yeah, raise your hand. Thank you.
And while we wait on that, just wanted to also give you just an update of how we're handling. So we are approaching each instructor, and we are making sure that we're working through them, right? Explaining to them exactly what the new approach was and what we are actually reevaluating. And we want to make sure that we understand that, sometimes change is a little bit difficult, but we are catering their needs to make sure that they're accommodating. That's go as far as, hey, providing them the facility at no cost to them so they can actually kind of get a taste of what it is with the new approach, right? Or making sure that, hey, if the new approach doesn't work, we're trying to work something out with them to make sure that they are accommodated, right? Because we don't want to lose these programs. We just want to make sure that it's a win-win situation for them as it is for us, as we are responsible for the funds that we get, and we have to be responsible to make sure that those funds are going, that we are sending those funds in the right way.
And I just want to say to Mr. Finkelman, thank you for all the work that you've been doing for over the years on the fencing program. It's been an integral part of the community center's activities, and you've done a fantastic job, and we really appreciate that. And thank you for being here tonight and raising this issue for us as well.
Right. I thank you, Commissioner Speck. Yeah, the way the proposal was presented to me was that instead of the DPR paying the instructors as independent contractors, we would be paying a rental fee, a permitting fee to use the facility. And my concern for the community is that many of the instructors are not professionals, that they're retired experts in their fields, and they may not want to have a business where they need to provide rental, provide income to provide rental space. I think it makes the instructors want to have more students to increase attendance rather than to have to increase their income sources rather than to provide a quality student-teacher ratio. And if all the instructors need to provide, are asked to provide a rental fee, then I think many of the instructors wouldn't be acceptable to that. So that I think the community would lose a lot of the programming that's available now. And, so just in general, it might affect the programming at the center. I'm not talking specifically about my fencing program, but certainly it would change the nature of the program. Well, once the instructors rent space at the Chevy Chase Community Center, it's up to them to provide whatever activities they want to provide at that point. And the DPR loses control over what classes are offered or what topics are taught at that point. Because once you rent the facility, you can do whatever you want with that with that room space. So it seems like the community loses some control as to what's being offered.
Thank you very much, Mr. Finkelman. I know those are the kinds of things that DPR is taking into account now, I'm sure. Certainly it's the kind of thing they should be taking into account, and we appreciate that. We also have an instructor from the ballet club as well. You want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. My name is Reagan, and I am one of the highly decorated volunteer ballet teachers that has been volunteering my time at the Chevy Chase Community Center under the direction of the ballet contractor, Lynn B. Welters, who has been a valued contractor for ballet at Chevy Chase Community Center for over 15 years. And she has taught the DPR ballet classes for over 15 years. And she then volunteers her time after a certain age with the dance club, much like the dancing club. And we are also concerned because we continue to volunteer our time to continue the training of young dancers. We offer the same level of education for classical ballet at Chevy Chase Community Center that we take the kids. DPR has never seemed to be very interested in the continued ballet training over age 7. So we've simply volunteered it. And we as we are continuing with this dance club online, although Zoom was never meant for classical ballet, but we do hope to come back to Chevy Chase Community Center when it is safe to do so that we can continue to work with the young and older students. Some of our students through the dance club that have come through Chevy Chase Community Center are now this summer, they've auditioned for Maryland Youth Ballet's in-person program, and they've gotten in thanks to our continued dedication. And we want to continue to provide that public service for the same high level quality of classical ballet training that you could get when you pay a lot of money at Maryland Youth Ballet or at Washington Ballet, right at Chevy Chase for the community. So we are very interested in continuing. We would like to continue to work with you and with DPR. No one has reached out to the ballet club or to Ms. Welters yet. So we are eager to find out about the contracting status, et cetera, and we are very flexible as well.
Well, fortunately, it seems that DPR is still working on developing its guidelines. And so hopefully they're going to take these kinds of things into account. Peter, do you have a question? You're on mute.
And Randy, there's also one question in the Q&A.
I just want to say I've lived here close to 25 years and I never knew about all these programs. And it is this liveliness that we should bring more of to the community center and worry less about rent.
Right. All of us that were on the commission prior to this were very aware of it because when we were looking at the community center and what it should be in the future, we had a lot of these people come in and talk to us. The fencing program and the ballet program are stellar. They're some of the best in the city and have been recognized as such. And so we are very, very lucky to have them. And the community center has a ballet floor that is unique. There are not very many of those in the city. And we installed it, we got it installed a number of years ago. And it's really important to maintain that kind of programming. Okay,
I remember,
just
Randy, I remember at a public meeting, there was a girl who came from a very distant ward. I want to say like Ward 7 or something like that, really far away. And she'd come to this ballet class and said that it was a lifeline for her and spoke so eloquently about it. So I think these are programs that a lot of the community has really taken advantage of, and we should, find a way to make sure that we can sustain it.
Right. Okay, Cesar.
Yeah, so just to add, so our point of view is we want to keep these programs and we want to keep these programs successful, and we want to make sure that these programs, if there's an option, to bring out those programs to other parts of the city as well. Now, Chevy Chase, it is unique, right? Especially for fencing and for ballet, right? And we want to keep those programs going. Now, when we say that we're working to a permit, right? I just want you guys to know when we say permits, right? And Mr. Finkelman he knows that we had a conversation with him about this, right? It's like we're not charging any fees to them, right? It's completely zero rental fees, right? To make sure that they understand that, hey, we just want to make sure that they take care of what they need to take care of, and we'll provide you with that unique service of just coming onto our centers, right? At no fees to us. So we are not charging a fee. And if there was a fee, we were thinking of maybe a $5 fee per hour, right? Which is close to nothing, but we offer zero cost, right? And we are offering to go ahead and make sure that we are keeping their equipment safe at our facilities. We are providing that gold standard service to our instructors. So at no point we ever want to get rid of those programs. We just want to make sure that when we offer these programs, that is fair across the board. And that's why the executive team right now is going back and reassessing how we can put this in literally in writing, right? And we can provide an update to you guys and saying, hey, look, this is what we want to do moving forward, because these are the benefits to it for the instructors and also for the government. That's right.
Okay, well, thank you. We do appreciate the fact that you're going back and looking at this carefully now. Lisa?
Yes, so Cesar, I just want to make sure you address the comment that's in the Q&A. When the plan is revised, will it be open to modifications, or will it be a final plan? And just to piggyback off of that, my question is there a comment period for the public when you are going to negotiate this contract? Will there be a comment period?
So to answer your first question, yes. So it's not we as DPR, we don't put anything out there and we say, hey, this is it, right? We have a plan, and we'll reach out to the community, all the stakeholders, to say, hey, look, this is what we're trying to offer, to make sure it's a win-win situations for the government and for the community. We're usually always lean to the community because we are here for the community. And we want to make sure that the community is getting the best at all times, right? And when it comes down to the contracts, negotiating the contracts, if we are taking the approach of bringing out contracts again, that's something that we are going to go ahead and make sure that we negotiate with the instructor or the identity to make sure that, hey, it's a win-win situation for DPR and for them as well. It's just that these contracts in the past were not done by the actual DPR program contract. I guess you could say facility or the person that was in charge of contract. These contracts have been gone for a long time, and they were just being renewed on a yearly basis without going back and observing what the contract actually entailed. So now we want to make sure that, hey, we know exactly what the contract is meant to be, and we want to make sure that the person that's following the contract, they follow what the contract is actually asking them to do as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions about that topic before we go on to the reopening plans?
Ballet has one more question for Cesar.
Okay,
We were hoping that DPR might be willing to reach out to Ms. Welters about her continued running of the dance club during the pandemic and her willingness to volunteer over the summer. She did teach the DPR classes up until October on Zoom. But also if DPR might be willing to have a conversation with her and us about considering putting ballet under sports, because after a certain age, ballet does become an active sport, and we are providing that. And it's something that we would like for you to consider having an open conversation about.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely bring that in. I'll bring that up to my executive team and also to the sports office, and that could definitely be on the table.
Thank you.
No problem.
and thank you for participating tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Cesar, if you want to just describe what the status is now for reopening. Oops, did we lose him?
Yep. Hang on, Cesar.
Okay,
Can you guys hear me?
yes, we can. Okay, reopening.
Yep. So I'm pretty sure you guys were in the news. You heard of the mayor's lifting all the restrictions. So we heard it just like you guys did today, right? So we are going back to the drawing board to make sure that we have a plan in place to make sure of how we're going to move to the reopening. What we have right now prior to the mayor's announcement was on June 28th is where that's when our summer begins, and our hours of operations were going to be from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. from Monday to Friday, and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, if we're just talking across the district, if the facility had a fitness center and all the stuff, you'll be able to make reservations. And now if we go back to Chevy Chase, let's say, for example, so Chevy Chase is very unique. We don't have a fitness center. We were just going to be open for the summer camps. Summer camps were going to be just Monday through Friday, again, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Now that we have this announcement, we have to go back to the drawing board, like I said, and we have to make sure to reevaluate, hey, what are the next processes when it comes down to reopening the centers and getting back to some type of normal. One of the things that they have a meeting this morning with the director and the executive team, we are looking to reopen access to the bathrooms at our community centers, right? Because we have the community out there on our fields, you know, and they don't have access to restrooms. So that's something that is coming up this week, where we're gonna have staff members in our facilities allowing individuals to come in to use the restroom. We don't have a process in place right now, but we are tasked to come up with the process by the middle of this week to make sure that we are compliant by either Thursday or Friday. So that's something that as soon as I have that as well, I could reach out to you, Commissioner Speck, to let you know, hey, this is what we're tasked to do. So you have that as well. And hopefully by the time we have the next meeting, we'll be open as usual, Monday to Fridays. And all that stuff.
Great. And then June 11th, everything is supposed to be open, including the sports facilities and other things like that. Does that mean that the community center would be open for ANC meetings, for instance? I guess you don't know at this point, but.
At this point, I don't know, but again, if all restrictions are up and we're up and running, I think the only ask would be to wear a mask.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Peter? You're muted. Peter, you're muted.
I think it would be great if we could get back to in-person meetings. When we do, I hope we can find some ways, just as we've talked about, and in the course of doing research about these community forums, we have some new information that we could use further on to make the production values of our Zoom meetings better. I hope that we can find a way to make the production values of the meeting in that auditorium better. And I guess I wonder whether past commissions have ever tried to figure out how to damp all of the, stuff bouncing around on the walls so that, I mean, I remember hearing tapes of the meetings that were done in there where I couldn't figure out a thing that was said. I couldn't figure out a thing that was said when I was at the meeting. So have you guys, did you deal with that did past commissions deal with that?
But we got an audio system that helps a lot, because that helps with the recordings that we did. And the recordings were just videos that were taken of the meeting. And it got a lot better. The acoustics in that room are terrible. There's no question about that. But the biggest problem too, and Cesar may be able to address this, but because of the construction of that building and the fact that it's built like a fort, essentially, with concrete everywhere, it's been impossible really to have decent Wi-Fi connections. And if we're going to have a streaming of our meetings, and maybe even a hybrid kind of meeting where people could participate both by video, or they could be there in person, we have to have good Wi-Fi, and that's been the handicap in the past for our doing live streaming, is we just didn't have a good enough Wi-Fi connection. So those are the things that we need to address if we're going to go forward and try to have in-person meetings with some kind of video connection for those who can't attend.
Okay, and that's something that I can work with my IT department to see if we could get like a Wi-Fi extender or something to get, because you're right, because of the concrete walls, we have Wi-Fi on one side of the building, but we don't have it on the other side, right? So right. I think the easiest fix would be instead of rewiring, would be just to get a Wi-Fi extender, and I could definitely work on that, and I can provide you with an update, because yes, I agree, right? It's better to have those in-person meetings and also have the access of the virtual part of it.
Yeah. Other ANC commissions are dealing with the same kind of issue. And I spoke actually today with another commissioner in 3D, and they're also trying to figure out how to do this. So I think we'll consult with some of our other fellow commissioners and with the Office of Advisory Neighborhood Commissions and see if we can't come up with a way to do this on a hybrid basis that's going to be efficient for all of us and enable more people to participate in our meetings.
I agree.
Well, any other questions for Cesar about reopening process?
One in the Q&A, which asks what conditions have to be met for the Chevy Chase Community Center to be open. So some groups meet at night. So for the normal hours pre-pandemic. I don't know if Cesar, if you can answer that.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, so we usually, when any organization wants to hold a meeting at a facility, we have to go through the permit office, and the permit office has an application that they will fill out. And based on that application and that criteria, they will either issue a permit or not. It could be different reasons why they could qualify, but usually it's not a hard process where if the space is available and we have a slot, we usually give them a permit out so they can go ahead and host a meeting. But yes, there is a process and application through the permits office, and there's more to get a purchase for any community center out there.
Just to remind commissioners too, that when we had in-person meetings at the community center, the community center closed at 9:30. And so our meetings went from 7 until 9. We could run over a little bit, but they really kicked us out as right after 9. So that's a constraint. That's the reason why we went to 2 meetings a month, which I was again talking to some commissioners this afternoon, and they marveled at the fact that we had 2 meetings a month and said that was crazy. Okay, any other questions for Cesar? Cesar, thank you very much for coming tonight, and we appreciate your continuing to keep us involved in this process and advised of what's happening. We know that this is a difficult time for everybody as we're adjusting to a new normal, and we'll continue to talk with you and look forward to hearing from you.
Well,
Connie,
thank you guys again.
I do have one quick question to Cesar. The outside bulletin, the electronic board, is that going to be turned on again, or is that non-function outside of the community center?
Are you talking the one close to the library?
Yeah, the one that's in between, like that's on the street near the street side.
I think that one belongs. Yeah.
Is it PL?
We don't. Yeah, because as for DPR, we don't have an electronic board, and if we did,
Okay.
I'll be surprised. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a DC. Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Cesar,
one last thing.
I'm sorry, Michael. Cesar, can you put your email in the chat?
Yeah,
There's,
definitely.
in case someone wants to contact you, I think there is one other question in there you might could address on email.
Okay.
Michael, I'm sorry, go on.
No. The last thing, remember during our task force conversations, one of the recommendations was at the community center to have some sort of bulletin board communication set up. So how do we follow up about, now that the community center is on the verge, hopefully, of reopening, what's the process by which we follow up to make sure that we can accomplish that objective from the task force report?
So Michael, I've been working with the Chevy Chase Main Street program, Alex, on getting a board. I was just curious whether or not that board is functioning at all, but they are going to, they are negotiating with with some private businesses to try to put it on private land, because when I talk to a different person at DPR, it's a whole process of like setting it up and getting everything maintained, and that's a lot of work. So after the community center is redone and that campus is done, that could be the permanent location. So we're looking for a temporary one right now.
Yeah,
and hopefully we could report that back at some point.
I thought that in the community center, we were talking about something that was within the community center, something that was much more basic as well. It was a bulletin board.
We are, Michael.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was being.
I think that's going to be in the standing committee's jurisdiction, right?
I see. Okay.
Right.
So I wanted to make sure while he's here that he knows that our desire is for that.
Yeah,
right.
We need it. We need it.
All right.
So Cesar, I'll be in touch with you on what Michael is talking about, but it was a recommendation under our task force on racism to have something within a community center that kind of addresses our racial past and racial history. We're still noodling through those recommendations, but I'll shoot you a quick email just so that you're kind of aware of what that recommendation is, and we'll probably be in touch with you down the road on how to address it.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And again, just thank you. And if you guys have anything, anybody from the community or anything, if you see something, because I'm always counting on people's feedback and eyes to let me know what's going on. Because sometimes if I don't see everything and my staff doesn't see everything, and now especially since we're not there, you see anything, you have my email there. I'll go ahead and put in my cell phone number as well. Feel free to send me an email, a text message, or give me a call. My phone is always on. And again, if I don't pick up, then I'll definitely get back to you within 24 hours.
Thank you, Cesar. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Okay. All right. The last substantive item on the agenda is discussion and possible vote on testimony at the Council's Committee on Transportation and the Environment. They're holding a May 13th roundtable hearing on the surge in traffic crashes, fatalities, and injuries in the district, and the urgent need to fully fund the Vision Zero Enhanced Omnibus Amendment Act. The objective of the Vision Zero program is that by the end of the year 2024, Washington DC will reach zero fatalities and serious injuries to travelers and in our transportation system through more effective use of data, education, enforcement, and engineering. But instead of making progress toward that goal, we've actually fallen further behind. We're having a greater number of traffic fatalities and serious injuries. And to address this concern, the council passed a new statute on September 23rd last year, the Vision Zero Enhancement Omnibus Amendment Act, and it became effective on December 23rd last year. Some aspects of the statute, however, have not become effective because they've not been funded. And the most glaring of these is the requirement that the mayor prepare a multimodal long-range transportation plan. And the hearing is designed to seek testimony on the funding needs for this statute. And I have drafted testimony. Michael and Connie have both worked on it and improved it. Basically, the testimony addresses three topics: the need to make our streets safe for the most vulnerable. For example, children going to and from schools, seniors, and those with disabilities who are less able to avoid collisions, and bicyclists and pedestrians who too often must share the roadway with cars and trucks. Second, the need to make buses truly accessible and reliable so that they provide a viable alternative to more dangerous transportation modes. And finally, the need for all planning to incorporate transportation safety, not as an afterthought, but as a central premise. And that's particularly important because of our small area plan coming up and the need to consider traffic safety and pedestrian safety as we look at the area covered by the small area plan. So any thoughts? I mentioned to the commissioners that this hearing is on Thursday and I have a conflict that afternoon. And so it begins at noon and I'm not able to give the testimony, but so we need either someone to give the testimony live on Thursday, or we could just submit it as a written testimony. We don't have to have somebody there on Thursday. But in any case, we've gotten comments from Michael and Connie on the testimony, but other commissioners have thoughts about it as well. This is clearly a very important issue. It's been an important issue for the city. And it's a shame that there are a number of good initiatives like this that don't find their way into budget funding. And as a result, they languish or are essentially repealed because of the lack of funding. And I think particularly this requirement for a multimodal long-range transportation plan is absolutely fundamental. And it would be a shame if we didn't go forward with that. So any discussion, any comments?
Well,
Michael?
yeah, so I agree with you, Randy. I gave you my edits, as you indicated, to the written testimony. I unfortunately have conflicts with physical therapy because of my hip surgery that take up a good chunk of Thursday. So I'm an unreliable testifier because of my inability to control my calendar. But I would hope that all of us will take a look at it. Those who have SMDs that touch on Connecticut Avenue, it's very important. And those of you who have streets that are possible cut-through streets, if there's the option C invoked. So this and of course, if you represent senior citizens, this has a big impact on their safety. So I'm hoping that we as a commission will each individually take a look at this and embellish upon it. And if we can find someone to testify to it orally, that's great. If we can't, Randy, then submitting it in writing will be the only option. Because I know Connie has the same conflict that I do.
Yeah, one of the things I think that's really important too, and it affects a lot of areas that are not right on Connecticut Avenue, is the lack of sidewalks in a lot of neighborhoods. And on Utah Avenue, just south of Pinehurst Circle, which is, I think, both your and Lisa's SMDs, Michael. We asked about that at least 5 years ago, about why we couldn't get sidewalks there, because there are a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, who've been walking on Utah, and you get to the end of the sidewalk and you just got to keep walking in the street, and that's not safe. And we don't know when there's going to be another accident, but I can assure you that there will be one. And if we don't have sidewalks and other protections for pedestrians and bicyclists and others, this is just fundamental. And that's why that plan, I think the transportation plan is so important, is to identify, it charges the mayor and DDOT with identifying areas like that, that need sidewalks and that need protected bike lanes, and then focus on those areas to get that work done. I think, in fact, the statute that they passed last year probably doesn't go far enough, because it doesn't require sidewalks unless there is a major reconstruction on a road. And there are lots of streets that are going to go years without reconstruction of the road. And we really need to have some protection for people who are walking on those streets. Connie?
I mean, this is exactly right, Randy. I mean, we cannot have speeding vehicles and then no sidewalks. I mean, this is just an accident waiting to happen. And I know that in walking with my mother, I felt very, very unsafe, because number one, the sidewalks themselves really need improvement, and having no sidewalk is it's a no-brainer. We need it to be safe. Cars turn very fast around corners. Cars are speeding down Western Avenue, like that's my running path, and it is dangerous. And with COVID, a lot of people are going to the street if there's a crowd on the sidewalk. If there's no sidewalk, it's even more unsafe. So we have to do something about it, and we need to gain that kind of support. And especially if we go through the small area plan and we are advocating, for greater density, which the city wants, this kind of infrastructural matters, we have to deal with it. We cannot have more people we can't do this. We have to make it all work. And we have to put that attention now and not later, especially with the delays that we've seen in asking DDOT to repair alleys, to repair sidewalks, to put in stop signs. It's been a lot of delay.
Peter, you'll be happy to know that in earmarking, in editing Randy's draft, I pointed out the need for a stop sign at Chevy Chase Parkway and Military Road.
Well, let me contribute. There was another accident last night.
Yeah,
wow.
By the way, there's also, since last week, the stop sign at McKinley and 39th is down. Just as, if you want to pack it in, I mean.
Well, I know this is near and dear to you, so have a look at the draft testimony. Also, Peter, I wanted to tell you that I spoke to our Shira Molina, who is our DDOT community rep, about Chevy Chase Parkway and Military Road, and she said that, and Amir, if you're still on, yeah, he's still on. They said to submit a traffic calming assessment request. I told them it's been done umpteen times, and they should be embarrassed to ask to submit something that's been resubmitted. But all of that stuff should be packaged into this testimony.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter, if you haven't put in a 311 request on the stop sign that's down, that I saw that stop sign down the other day. But a 311 request would
It's,
Their attention.
and I don't know who did it, but somebody put
I
up,
did it.
somebody put up a mini stop sign. It's like sits at about the 3-foot level. I don't know where that came from, but
That's what they're using.
cute. I don't know if anybody's going to notice it. I mean,
Well,
maybe
that's
you
what they're using, Peter. I have one actually in my SMD. Actually, it's right down the street from me, and it's been there for about a year. And somebody ran over the stop sign, and DDOT still has not replaced it. So unfortunately, they seem to be taking that path, and it is taking way too long because they are small. They're short. They can tip over. They're not sturdy. In that particular intersection where that stop sign is down, I mean, that's what, a 4-way stop. We need a decent stop sign that everyone can see and is aware of. And you think about it, you got so many people using that as a cut through that aren't going to be familiar that should, typically is a 4-way stop.
Chris?
So just to add to the list, and Peter, I'm sorry you didn't mention this, at Chevy Chase Parkway and Military Road, just south of Military, there are 2 blocks at Chevy Chase Parkway, which have 0 sidewalks on
Right.
either side. And and that's where we have all these problems with speeding cars. And people have to walk in the street. So actually, I've reported that to DDOT and they're
And we put that,
into it. But I think we should put that in the testimony.
it's in the testimony. It's in the testimony.
Great.
I do want to make a pitch for those of us who use Twitter. I did submit a photo of Nevada Avenue between Legation and Livingston, where there was road work done just across the entire road, where it was like 1.5 inches, like it had been like drilled up and so forth. And cars at a distance could not see, and they were stopping short and then going over it. And it was really scary. And I took a picture and then I tweeted out to the 311dc.gov and also just to let them know. And they immediately passed that message on to DDOT. And within a few hours, I want to say 2 hours or so, like 2-3 hours, it was done. They had put gravel down, it was repaired. So that stop sign at 39th and McKinley, someone should take a photo. I mean, I'm happy to do that. Take a photo.
They
Oh,
already
they
did it.
did.
Someone in the community took a picture of it. His name is Stuart. I, suggest all you guys on Twitter to follow him because
Oh,
he's
good.
posted a lot of community stuff. And I retweeted behind him, and DDOT sent us a service ticket. So,
Yeah.
but it's, I'm just saying it's not probably going to be as quick to replace that temporary, the permanent stop sign. But there is a ticket out there for that one.
Oh, good.
Where is the permanent stop sign? It's lying on the ground?
Yeah.
well, it's
And
off
actually,
now.
if you go on Twitter, he took a very good photo of how it's all toppled. Now, I don't know what it looks like currently if they pulled that up, but yeah.
So there's a small one and the big one's on the ground?
No, the big one's gone now, but the WMATA sign, the bus sign is on the ground. It looks to me like either a stump, either a tree toppled and it lifted up the sidewalk and it knocked them both over. But this was sometime early last week. I mean, it was like, it just didn't, so they put out this little dinky sign, which is, if you're driving, a Honda Civic like me, I see it because it's right in my gaze, right? But anything like Lisa's Escalade, she'd never see it. She's like, she's way above it.
Okay, I move that we support the testimony, that we adopt the testimony and for presentation to the committee on the 13th. Is there a second?
Second.
I second it.
All those in favor? 7-0. Okay. Now, I have registered as a witness, but obviously I can't do it. So Lisa, there was a possibility you could do it. Do you want to? Or should we you want to just submit it in writing? I mean, I don't think it'll make a whole lot of difference, but.
Do you know what time?
Noon is when it starts.
Which
It
means,
starts at noon.
yeah, but you could be on at any time. Like
I
6.
Well, I don't think this one is going to be that long. I think there will probably be a fair number of people, but it's not going to be 40 or 50 people. It's probably going to be 20.
Just submit it in writing.
We can just submit it in writing. That's fine. Okay, why don't we do that? I will just
It's-
submit it in writing.
It's too bad they don't take video testimonies.
Yeah. But that's okay. And I think it's Mary Chase Committee, and I'll send a copy to Mary. I'll send a copy to Janice, Louis George. And so they will have the testimony as well, and they'll pay attention to it. I'm sure. Okay. Michael, you're muted if you're talking.
I was just going to say, just one more request for those who haven't read it or comment on it. If there are specific things that we want to highlight in it, just have a look and just add it. It's a very easy format within that testimony to edit.
Yeah, the one thing I didn't really focus on, but for those of us who are interested in the E6 bus and the M4 bus, mention that as well, because that's a part of public safety too, and it's actually mentioned in the statute that they will support equity in bus transport and other modes of transport. So I mean, it's really important that I think we emphasize that too. Every opportunity we have, we should talk about the E6 bus. And
We had it in the original testimony, Randy, and I added additional language on that. So if people are more familiar with it than you or me, we should again have.
I think the E6 is not on that list of service lines that are coming back, was what I read.
Well,
correct. So we need to.
Taken.
It is on the list that says for the E6 bus that it will come back when justified by ridership, something like that. And if you're not having the E6 bus, how are they going to justify the ridership? Because you're not going to know.
And plus, it's what's the right number of ridership, right? I mean,
well, yeah, we've fought this battle for decades, and I suspect we'll continue to have to fight the battle with WMATA. But from the district standpoint, they should be pushing WMATA and providing the subsidies that are necessary to make sure that this route and others like it are maintained. So, all right, commission business.
Randy,
Lisa,
I have one question from something prior about the blighted and vacant homes.
Right.
How about cars, vehicles? I noticed one. I'm going to report it. That's right across from the community center.
Yeah,
this vehicle
that was been reported for at least the last 4 years.
What? Oh, come on! You see, this is ridiculous.
And it has
it
has a valid inspection and a valid registration. Believe it or not.
They get that car at inspection. They must have towed it.
The tires are completely busted.
It has been
okay.
And second, I reported a couple of cars in my neighborhood where the registration had long since expired. And I was told by it's DPR, I think DPR has that responsibility. And they said they weren't enforcing anything because of the pandemic. So once the pandemic is over, we can report them again. And that one on McKinley should be reported. I'm not optimistic that it will be moved. Like I said, it's been there for 4 years.
Well,
at least 4 years.
Ridiculous.
Jerry Mallett pushed it.
If we have a parking issue, certainly cars that are just sitting there forever and not being used should be out.
I know.
I've dealt with this for some of my constituents through DPW. And if the car is registered to somebody who lives in the area and it meets the criteria of a valid registration and all that stuff, there's nothing that really allows them to remove it.
Then it needs to change because those tires are flat as heck. It cannot move. I mean, no one's driving it.
Well, and they haven't for 4 years. It actually was once parked on Northampton Street on the other side of the community center. It was parked there for 2 years, and then they moved it over to McKinley Street. And it's been there.
Yeah,
It's in a different spot. though. It's about, one car length closer to Connecticut Avenue now than it used to be. I've been watching that car for a long time.
Okay, I didn't really know. Come on.
Okay.
That's funny.
Minutes. Lisa has sent us the minutes for April 12th and our April 21st special meeting. Are there any modifications or changes anyone has to those two? Okay, I move that we adopt the April 12th and April 21st minutes. All those in favor? 7-0.
You have to have a second first?
You second.
Yep, right through it. John, you have any checks that need to be approved?
We have 4 checks,
Okay,
$228.58 to Randy for Zoom. I'll send you an email on this, Lisa.
Thank you.
$199.99 for the GoDaddy website maintenance. $154.25 to Verizon, and $24 to get extra keys at the post office box.
okay.
Now, since I hope we'll get approval. And Lisa, can I visit you tomorrow morning to get them signed?
Okay, you want to move those checks to be approved, and all those in favor? 7-0. Yes, honey.
Lisa,
Okay.
what's a good time?
Let me just check real quick. Let's see what I got on schedule. Anytime after 9 o'clock.
Okay, super.
Yeah. I'm good.
Okay, there are a lot of things we have on our agenda for May 24th. The small area plan report and the report on the Racial and Social Equity Committee. Those are going to be pretty much standing reports for a while, I think. Been a presentation by and discussion with Stephen Slaughter and Carrie Booker Mullen on the Veterans Advisory Board, which they've asked to make a presentation. Then we have a number of possible testimonies for the budget hearing. Now, this is going to be really a shot in the dark in some respects, because the mayor's budget doesn't come out until May 27th. And then there are going to be hearings that start pretty much immediately in June, and a bunch of them that will occur before our meeting on June 12th, I think, or something like that. I can't remember what day our meeting is in June. But anyway, we would have to approve the testimony without knowing what the budget's going to be, which is very difficult. We'll just have to see where we stand at that point. And we may have to have a special meeting to consider some of this after the mayor's budget comes out, to see whether we want to change testimony or not file testimony, or file testimony on things we hadn't thought we would. But this is what we run into every year. It's much later this year, and the schedule of hearings is so compressed that the hearings are going to come really fast after the mayor's budget comes out. And then finally, there's the testimony that I mentioned earlier in the announcements, and that is for the Committee of the Whole, the hearing on May 25th on the roundtable on vacant and blighted properties. And it's been surprising to me how many people have called properties to our attention. Some that I had passed repeatedly and hadn't noticed as being vacant. There's one on Utah Avenue that a neighbor said has been vacant for 30 years. So something should be done about that. And I checked on the tax rolls, and it's classified as a residential property with being occupied. And it should have been taxed at the much higher rate for all those 30 years.
I just don't understand that, Randy. And I know DC Audit has done an audit on that. I just, for the life of me, I don't understand this.
Well, I mean,
function.
I don't know whether DCRA probably doesn't act on anything until they get a complaint, somebody telling them that it's vacant. So now that's why it's really important for us now to be advising them. Every one of these houses that we identify as being vacant, we should tell them and ask them to go inspect it and see whether it's vacant and whether the tax rate needs to be changed.
Well, I think that was part of the recommendation in the audit.
Probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
John?
Randy,
Painful.
are the veterans people definitely scheduled for us?
Yes,
Okay, good.
yes.
There's a longstanding issue at Norwood I'm just getting familiar with, which Brandon Todd was a champion for. I guess Mr. Mendelson wasn't that enthusiastic about it, but that was to give some sort of tax relief to veterans. Many states have that. Some people
Right.
say we're losing veterans to other states because it's cheaper to live there. So I will research that a little bit. I may bring that up at the time, but I think that would be a good opportunity to see if we can kickstart that.
Yeah,
issue.
Paul Bricker has been very active on that issue at Knollwood. And so, you know, and like you said, there are lots of other, I think, in fact, maybe even a majority of states have at least some form of tax break for veterans.
And we can always bring up the E6 bus again
Right.
for military people who live here
Right.
any way we can.
Okay.
Randy, for that agenda, is DPR going to come back to tell us about the community center that day? Did they say that day?
They didn't say that date. Let's see what happens and see whether they
Okay.
actually have a guideline by then.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because our meeting after that is June 14th. So
Right.
that's a big.
there's a 3-week gap.
Mhm.
I know. Okay, thank you all. We're actually finishing before 9 o'clock.
Is that allowed?
A world's record.
Is that
We need to
allowed?
thank the people who are still online. Thank you so much for staying on.
Thanks for everyone who is participating tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, and I assume that Stephanie is making copies of the chat. There's
I
not
hope so.
a
She's
lot.
still there. She's
She's
still
got
there.
it.
She's got it.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. And we'll see all of you on Wednesday morning next for administrative meeting. Okay.
All right.
Randy, did you send an invite for that yet?
I did.
Okay,
10:30.
10:30, okay.
Right. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.